caring for someone you love isn't just about managing their day-to-day needs, but navigating a whole ecosystem of emotions, finances, and constant change. Caregiving today is a moving target, one that touches every part of life. And while it can feel overwhelming, new tools and technology are transforming what's possible for families who want to do it well. And that's where our conversation is going to begin.
We have here with us today Bradley Richardson. Bradley is a 5-time best-selling author and creator of Advanced Adulting, one of the most popular platforms on social media for people navigating midlife and beyond. He's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Rolling Stone, Good Morning America, NPR, and more. And his weekly Advanced Adulting podcast can be found on YouTube. And he hosts a global online community for age 45 through 65. Bradley, welcome. We're so excited to have you here on CareLab today.
Thank you for having me. This is going to be fun. Excited to talk to y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so tell us a little bit. Obviously, we're going to hear all about Advanced Adulting, which I think is probably one of the best names I've ever heard. But tell us a little bit about your journey to get where you are right now. Like, what started all of this?
Oh, wow. To get to here, gosh. Well, it's funny. So, the baseline here is I am in my 50s, but let's go way back. I'm squarely Gen X, the older Gen X. But going back about 30 years, I wrote one of the very first books for Gen X back when I was 27, a book called Job Smarts for 20-somethings. And so when we're all starting out and everyone was talking about when there were only two generations in the workforce, it was Xers and Boomers, it was people talking about slackers, talking about 20-somethings, 20-nothings. And I wrote a book from Random House that really talked about how we can get started professionally. And that led to a career of really chronicling how we Gen X matriculate life. And that could be, I've written books on being a dad, on starting over. I've had a career in executive search for a number of years. I've had highs, lows, divorced, all of that. And it's interesting because about 5 or 6 years ago, after being in the executive search business for a long time and raising my kids, I had wanted social media. I was an OG influencer before there was social media, I guess. And so now with social media, you're looking and go, I want to get back to what I really enjoy. And that's sharing these messages out there. And the biggest thing about advanced adulting and how we got here was, there's so many things that as you go through life, they hit you just square in the face. And you know maybe that they're coming, but you never expect them. So when you're 27, you don't sit there and think, well, I wonder what my second marriage is going to be like. Or I wonder what it's going to be like to care for older parents. And that's advanced adulting. And so about 5 or 6 years ago, I really started getting back into this. And we built up the brand to have one of the bigger followings out there that handles the real stuff. It's not shaking your butt on TikTok, and it's not, sitting there and talking about how wonderful and fit and jacked I am on testosterone. It's about the real stuff, that the equalizers, as I call them. And caregiving is an equalizer because it doesn't matter where you live. We deal with people all over the world through advanced adulting. It doesn't matter, your background, your race, your religion, your income, anything. We're all encountering this in some form or fashion. And that's really what advanced adulting is. And so work with not only individuals, helping them navigate it, but with being that connector to bring them and companies together who serve this group.
That makes so much sense, especially talking about you've essentially been chronicling the different stages of your life that are also equalizers because everybody's encountering them kind of at the same time when you're thinking about generation and population. And so naturally, when you get to a certain age, you're going to be dealing, the numbers tell you that if everybody's either been a caregiver or will be a caregiver at some point in their life. So will you talk to us a little bit about how you think about that? How do you think about advising, or what message are you trying to share with people about considering or dealing with caregiving?
I think if there's one thing, if you had to boil it down, and there are many, but if you had to boil it down, you're not alone. I think that's the biggest thing. What I've noticed about caregiving, there's so many different things that, everybody to a degree wears a mask. You've got your personal mask, your professional mask, all of this. And what I've found, since, speaking as a Gen Xer, someone of a certain age, remember when we were growing up, there used to be a point in time way back in the day where people didn't talk about divorce or they didn't talk about cancer. It was like, oh my God, And, what's funny is caregiving seems to be one of those things now. We'll talk about dang near anything, but caregiving, it's, people are, the phrase is the reluctant caregiver, or they just don't know it. I was talking to a gentleman just before this call, and he goes, I've been a caregiver 32 years. I just finally acknowledged it and realized it 2 years ago. And I think that's the thing is we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it at work. We don't really talk about each other. We don't talk about, hey, why did you move back to your hometown? But when someone's, whether you call it brave enough, vulnerable enough, open enough to finally say, yeah, here's what's going on with mom and dad, or hey, yeah, I can't do this right now because it's making me crazy because I'm caring for, this loved one or spouse or child or whomever. That's when I've noticed that the floodgates open and they go, oh yeah, me too. And so I think that's the thing, is it's recognizing that, hey, this is normal and it's okay. And it sucks sometimes and it's hard, but you're not the only one. And that's okay. And that, I think, brings a lot of people, it doesn't solve anything, but it brings people some comfort too, because we hang on to this and we hide it oftentimes and we are reluctant to talk about it.
Do you think that it's important to normalize caregiving by talking about it? To like understanding that we all at some point will find ourselves in this role, and we will probably find ourselves on the opposite side too, where someone is caring for us. Like, how important is it to just normalize this part of life?
I think it's critical that we normalize it. I think it's something we've done that in so many other aspects of our lives now, but this is one. And what's funny is, yes, and you hit on something that a lot of people do. Hey, at one point we're going to need it. Yes, but just, I think the way a lot of people are wired, yeah, but that it doesn't ring true. It doesn't hit home yet. But when you're dealing with mom or dad, or you go, we're coming up, if you come up on the holidays and you go Thanksgiving, you go, oh my God, you see them twice a year or something. And it's like, what a decline. Or it's that right there. When it hits you, that's a big thing. And these are everybody loves, it's kind of like divorce, in that everybody loves to be the awesome Disneyland dad or the C&E parent. And it's awesome, the Christmas and Easter, and it's fantastic. And you have all the good stuff and it's all happy, good times. This is not a happy, good time subject, but it's important, And the more we kick that can down the road, then it becomes a 911, oh my God, holy crap situation. What are we going to do right now? And that's the problem. That's the problem that I encountered in my own personal life with my late mother. That's the problem that happens to a lot of folks, because it's not a conversation that's fun. It's not sexy. It's not entertaining. And as much as you don't want to talk about it, I guarantee you, they don't want to talk about it, because I think we forget that too, that, two things. I think we tend to think, oh, well, it's fine. They're going to be okay. It'll work itself out. Okay. There are like 50 million moving parts to this thing that you hit along the whole, as you're going. Okay. There's that 911 moment. There's where she's going to live, how she's going to get transported around, who's going to care for her, all of those different things. Who's going to take care of me, what's going to do to my finances, what's going to do to my family, my job. And we don't think about that. And I go back to that piece of the conversation that they don't want to have, because I remember even just with my own mother, I didn't like talking about it. I didn't want to plan for it. But even with her, it's like acknowledging your end. It's like acknowledging. And I think we forget that they're scared too. They're scared. They're, confused, uncertain. And it's like a lot of things. I think that the more we recognize that it's just a human going through this for the first time, and someone we love and they're going through it. I know the mistake that my sister and I made, that probably most families make, or most adult kids make, is you parent the parent, and it becomes a situation of, well, here's mom or dad over here, and you're talking about them like they're a distant third party over here. Well, we're going to do this, and you start controlling things, and you forget that, and sometimes they need it, but sometimes you forget, hey, wait a minute here. This is someone's life you're dealing with, and that you're making important decisions about this, that they're emotionally going through it as well. I think that's a hard part.
I want to double click on that, because you said it was a mistake that you and your sister made. What about that was a mistake? Because you needed to figure out what to do. They needed help. Is it just that you said it in front of them? Is it that we weren't thinking about them as being grown-ups too? Is it because they got upset about it? Tell us a little bit more about why are you saying that is a mistake?
D, all of the above. I mean, it was for us, and I don't think this is uncommon. For us, my mom had lived alone. Okay. I'm originally from Texas, so she was out in far west Texas. I was in Dallas at the time. My sister was in Atlanta. So we knew, she's living alone. Okay, there's that. She wasn't terribly healthy, no big chronic issues, but morbidly overweight, and dealing with that. We knew for years, hey, at some point we're going to have to do something. At some point we're going to have to do something about this. And we kept talking about that and would have more and more conversations, but it became I don't know, we'll just deal with that when it happens. Okay. So we would kick that can down the road and know that, oh, well, we have to, but we didn't want to talk about it. We didn't talk about where she's going to go. She's going to have to move from Lubbock at some point. How are we going to pay for it? What's going to happen? We would try and talk to her about, hey, you have to take care of yourself, or hey, we need to have this happen so you can get better care, at least living on your own. And she's stubborn, like most parents, older parents, didn't want to hear it either, And we think of that as them being belligerent, but it's really, she was scared, she was scared. Mm-hmm. And the other thing was, for us, like so many, we had pushed that conversation down the road so much that it became a 911 moment when we couldn't get in touch with her for about 2 days, and we end up sending the fire department, a childhood friend from where we grew up with, she'd fallen in the shower, had been there for 2 days, broke her shoulder, destroyed her shoulder. And so then it becomes oh my God, how are we going to rehab this? Where's she going to go? She can't stay on her own anymore. It's just you're moving a much bigger rock at that point. And you're putting out, little bonfires rather than having a plan. And then she ended up moving with my sister in Atlanta, thank God for that. But even then it became when I talk about the stages, I think that's important. There's not just what are we going to do with her right now, but okay, she'd been there about a year, health declining a little bit. Okay, how are we going to transport her? How are we going to get her healthy? How are we going to get meds? How are we going to get a home caregiver? All of these things. And having those conversations just became harder and harder. And so it became something that we would talk about and not really include her as much in choices. Sometimes, not saying that she would have made great choices, not saying that she was going to be cooperative, because she wasn't. But those are the things that I think people forget about, until you're in it. You have to plan, but there's some things you can't prepare for what it's really like until you're going through it.
Yeah. I think it can be so easy sometimes to talk about like what someone should or shouldn't do, or,
right,
things to try or things to avoid. But you're so right. It's when you're actually in the situation trying to navigate it, sometimes so much easier. And it is so important to remember that it's, in the relationship between caregiver and care receiver, sometimes it's harder to be the care receiver, which isn't to say that, that the struggles of the caregiver are not real. Of course they are. But which position would you rather be in, as a full grown adult who's been independent for your whole life, right? Who would you rather be in that relationship? It's really emotionally fraught and difficult.
Well, that word right there, emotionally, because we forget about this. I think that a lot of times, and again, you all are the professionals, they're the rubber meets the road in it. I've experienced it, and again, by virtue of advanced adulting, I'm in those conversations often. But the thing is, I think that as the adult child, we default to caregiving extending to the day-to-day tasks of, where are they going to live? How are we paying for it? How are they getting their meds? How are we getting through today? What do you need in a tactical, tangible way? And equally as important of that is the mental and emotional strain with it. Just that type of, your emotions, their emotions, all of this. And this can be extended. It's important to know too, is this can extend with not just aging, but we've had several friends whose parents have had strokes recently. Okay. And that's a whole other level of care, and I think that's a big thing. Not just it's hard watching the person you love, spouse, parent, grandparent, whatever, decline, to be a shell of themselves. Put yourself in their head for a minute, okay? To know, oh my God, I've been this, strong, independent, badass man or woman, and I can't do this now. I have to have someone else do this for me. Yeah, that's a hard deal. And the more I reflect on it, because when you're in the moment, you're in the moment, okay? But when you step back and you go, okay, if I were to give counsel to anybody, it's like, take a beat, okay? Take a beat. It's not always about you. It's not always about them too, It's not always someone being angry, belligerent, It's just, these is a complex group of emotions that none of us have experienced, and none of us sure as hell didn't plan for. That's it.
Yeah, it's like such a good point, because everybody ends up going through it, but nobody really does it more than one time for the most part. Maybe somebody might have to do it twice, but really most people, and if you do it twice, it might be completely different. One might be for just a person who's aging, another might be for a stroke, like you said. Like, those are two different situations.
Right.
And so you're still always like kind of a novice. And so I'm going to ask like a hard question, it might be a hard question if I'm asking. So I want to go back to like you and your family, and with your experience now and the experience that you've, of caring for your mom, all the conversations that you've had since then with everybody, what would you have needed in the moment of kicking the can down the road to maybe stop and do something different? Right? Like, I totally understand the reason for kicking it down the road, because you kind of don't know what to do, first of all. Yeah. So we can talk about it, but then what? What is the solution? I don't know. So let's just not mess with it right now. It's not actually a problem right now. So let's just keep going. Like, 100%. What would you have needed in that moment to actually go down the other road and like start talking?
I think, it's a favorite phrase of mine, but it's very accurate. And that's, you don't know what you don't know. And so I think that's it. I mean, when you're in the mix of it, you're right. You push it down because it's not a crisis right now. Hey, look, you're never going to have all the answers. Okay. You're not. There are so many great people out there who provide great resources, but you don't know what those are. And some of them you're not even going to think, it's not even going to be on your radar. Someone could explain it to you and what it is, and you're going to go, yeah, but how am I going to use that? And when you do, it's like, oh my God, I see. But I think the biggest thing would be if I were to do it over again, some sort of framework. You can call it bullet points. You can call it 4 core pillars, whatever, of, hey, this is something you're really going to need to think about here on this. And whether that is planning for it or, think of it this, it's like disaster planning, for almost anything. You need, I wish I knew, hey, you may not have everything figured out, but if mom falls, if there needs something, here are the 4 things you need to figure out real fast and at least have some sort of direction. You don't have to have it pinned down, but you need to know. And we don't think about that because whether it's financially, one, nobody wants to think about that, or you've thrown your hands up and go, well, God, we know we just can't afford it. It's going to be expensive. Or it's where are they going to live? Any of those things. We throw so much down the road, and you don't have to have everything figured out, but you need to at least have an idea of what are these core elements that you're going to have to deal with. And, even if it's just option A, option B, and then you figure out the rest while you're going. But because so few people, we have a retirement plan, but we don't have a plan for this at all. And I think that's a big thing. I wish I'd had that. I also wish that I had, whether you want to call it a roadmap, a flow chart. How do you have these conversations? How do you have this conversation? I think that's the biggest thing. This is your mom, especially if you don't need it now, it's kind of like talking about a cemetery plot or something, it's like, oh, I don't want to think about it. I'm not dead yet. That's my mom. She's a smart aleck. West Texas smart. I'm not dead yet. Don't get rid of me yet. So we're not having those conversations. I think that's something that I wish more people knew of. And I'm not going to say in a comfortable way, but at least in an acceptable way to go, okay, because I do believe, a lot of adult children, whether it's an oldest daughter, whether it's a male, well, damn it, we're going to figure this out. And here's what you're going to do. Here's what you're going to do, mom, and we become these fixers. We become instant fixers because you have to. And that's, it works, but it's a bumpy road getting there. So that's what I wish I'd had.
I think sometimes it can be so because to your point, there's no way of knowing what is going to happen or how it's going to happen. Right. We just don't actually know what the future looks like. And sometimes that makes it really difficult to have these conversations about like making a plan for the future, because if we don't know what are we planning for? Like to your point, Brandy, like what's the actionable thing we're going to do if we don't actually know what's going to happen and everything's okay right now? And so sometimes I think that a helpful way to approach it is in the same way that we think about, like if you're having a conversation about your advanced directive or, your medical care plan, right? Like you're healthy right now, but if something happened to you, what would you want your life to look like, right? And so I think sometimes we don't have to just extend that type of approach to end of life care or like extreme hospital care or something. We can say like, hey, none of us know what life's going to be like. Hey, mom, if you ever needed care, where would you want that to happen? Would you want that to be at your house? Would you want to move in with one of us? Would you want to go somewhere else? Like, how would you want that to be? And then at least, like, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but if we know what someone might want in different kinds of situations, then at least it lays a foundation for, okay, well, mom said she wants to be cared for at home. That means that we might need, to your point, Bradley, like these 3 things in place.
Right.
We're going to need money for that. Let's start saving money for that now. Or let's ask mom if she has a long-term care policy or whatever these other things are. So like, even if we don't know exactly what's going to happen, and we don't know how it's going to happen, when we know what people want, it can make it easier to at least lay some kind of groundwork so that we're not in a full-on panic when the thing inevitably happens. I'm still making that sound easier than it is. It's not.
Well, you're right. I mean, but I think one of the big things is we don't think about this because we're busy living our lives. And I think especially for people in that sandwich gen right now, if in your 40s, 50s, early 60s, hey, you're either raising your kids, you're getting your kids, trying to launch, you're trying to, figure out your own career, your own retirement, your own relationship, your own midlife crisis. And, the last thing you want to do, or and this is the biggest thing, it's in the back of your head. It's number 26D on the depth chart of things that I actually need to give attention to right now is what's going to happen with mom and dad on that. And I think that's the problem. And I think this is it. If I were to wave a magic wand on this, it's not a solution. We tend to avoid it because we think it's such a massive, all-encompassing topic. But at least, hey, it doesn't have to be right now. But if you wait and then that 911 moment hits, then you're not going to have any choices. Your choices have been cut by 80% in terms of what do I do to put out this fire in front of me right now today. And so that planning is, hey, just devote a day. Just devote a day right now. This isn't something it's not like, hey, I have to work out my whole retirement plan and navigate. It's just like, okay, we're going to have one day where we're going to hell and we're figuring all this out and have the tough stuff. And we at least know and we knock it out. Okay, cool. At least you have done that rather than talk about it at Thanksgiving, when, people are washing dishes and, you and your sister in there talking about, oh my God, this is going to suck. Can you believe this? And I think that's just a real way of doing it.
After 3 glasses of wine and too much turkey.
Oh, yeah. 3 glasses of wine, you're like, I'll be damned, she's not living with me. I'm not doing that. Those are real things. We joke about it, but that's real how it goes. Or one person, you're always, you and I have talked about this on my podcast before. There's always, if you have siblings, there's always one that's hands-on, one that's emotional, and one that's like, no, I'm arm's length, just let me cut a check. Okay. Or everyone's got an opinion. Okay. Everybody wants to be in control to some degree. Boy, getting ahead of this thing lets you keep some semblance of control. You're never going to know everything. But boy, if you don't do anything, you will have, your choices are going to be taken from you on how you act, respond, and do. And that's it.
That's such an important point that like when you start earlier or have some thought about it, you have more options than when you wait until it's a 911 situation, like you said. The other thing that you mentioned a few times, and also I want to lead into, is like your podcast and platform is not necessarily about caregiving, but it becomes part of it. And what you've mentioned is that it's all encompassing because everything's tied into it, right? And everybody is dealing with it in some form or fashion. Either they are kicking the can down the road, or they're actually doing caregiving, or they just lost somebody, and so at this stage in life, you're experiencing it. And so I guess I would just curious about like how often you feel like caregiving comes up in your conversations, even if the conversation starts with finances or relationships.
Well, it's funny. I said it just a few moments ago. I think it's one of those things when you open the door a little bit, you'll find out how, because social media is a great thing. There's lots of people doing great things out there, but it's hey, look, I'm going to embrace my age and go gray naturally. Awesome. Hey, look, I'm going to be fit at 55. Awesome. Those are cool things to talk about. They're good looking. But then when you actually get someone talking about, oh man, yeah, hey, why'd you move back to Longview, Texas? Oh, well, because I had to come take care of my mom. Oh, well, me too. Here's what's going on. That's it. And as far as advanced adulting is concerned, it's funny. Advanced adulting is really about everything, the good and the bad, and the okay and the everyday. It's all that. Yes, we talk about reinvention and purpose and lifestyle and all that. Awesome. But last year, we have several 100,000 folks around the world. And I asked them, I said, so what are the most important things to you right now? I mean, I know what's going on in my life right now, but 5 years ago it was about relationships. That's not important to me right now. I'm in a good one. Yay. So that's, dealing with that isn't as important right now. It's fluid as you go through these different things. And I said, so what are some of the big core issues? And they said, obviously my own health and longevity. Okay, great. retirement and finances, and the other was caring for mom or dad, which I didn't expect. Honestly, I did not expect that to be as much of a prominent thing as it is. And some of the content that we've done, it's funny, the content that we've done this year that has been seen and received by literally millions of people have been about either your career finances or about this caregiving. And one of our most popular pieces was, and I say popular, not in terms of just, oh, people saw it, but people just, people chiming in, people saying, oh, that's me.
Engaging
I see myself in this. And I think that's the thing. I go back, I said it again. When you open up the floodgates and people see themselves in a situation, they'll talk about it. And, we talk about, caring for the caregiver. Okay. Because it's not just taking care of that person. It kicks you in, it impacts you, your finances, your family, your emotion, everything, your career, everything. And when we did a piece on that, we've had a couple million people who have all about that, and hundreds of thousands of comments of, I had to deal with that, whether it's dementia, whether it is a stroke, whether it's just aging, whether it's sibling conversations. So it comes up. It's like anything. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about advanced adulting is, I say navigate midlife and beyond, because that's really it. You're hitting things at different stages, and what's important to you right now may not be important in 2 years. And what you're thinking of and seeing someone else go through, it may come, it may not, but that's the beautiful part is we're all, it is equalizers. It's going to hit us at some point, just at different stages.
I'd love to know before we wrap up here, and if this is too personal, you can just tell us. We'll edit it
As you can
out.
tell, I'm so tight-lipped.
So you
right?
don't have to answer the question if you don't want to. But
Right.
I think you make such a wonderful point that, like, you get to this midlife stage in life, and there are so many different things that are changing and coming at you, and you get to one stage and this is the important thing, and then a few years later you're at another stage and this is the important thing. What's the next thing for you that's on your mind that you're like, okay, Bradley Richardson has to deal with this now?
Not too personal at all. In fact, y'all gonna see a lot about this coming soon. So for me, and it's not this way for everybody, but for me, I turned 59 about a week ago. Okay. And
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And what's funny, there are two things with this. Number one is you look at, I think Stanford did a study saying that biologically you age the most, physiologically you age the most at 45 and 60. Okay. That hit me. Okay. That really hit me. And in terms, okay, if I'm going into this kind of final stage, if you will, this last third of my life, how do I want to tee myself up? Not just physiologically, but in everything, okay? Because I believe, people talk, life is in chapters. Yeah, I also believe life is kind of like a series of different short stories. You're just the main character. And so what do I want to do with this next evolution of me, okay? And I think that's a big piece of it. And for a lot of people, you see a lot of people in the midlife space and, hey, look, good for them. I wish it were me. But there's a lot of people that are hey, you've done all this and you've achieved this. And now here you can find your purpose and your legacy. Cool. I still think I have a lot of gas in the tank and I don't think I've peaked. That's it for me right now is what if you're, great, I haven't sold a company for 8 figures. I can't go hang out in Cabo for 2 months and do this stuff. And I think if you look at social media, there's a lot of that BS. For me, it's like, okay, personal, I've done a lot right. I've achieved a lot. I've had a lot of great success. I've also screwed the pooch magnificently in many ways, okay? Professionally, personally, with my kids, everything. And I think if it's one of those kind of like caregiving, if you're really honest with people, you go, okay, here's what I did right. Here's what I did wrong. Your professional life may be fantastic. Your personal life's a dumpster fire. Invert it, whatever. And I'm like, I have another shot at this with certain things that I want to achieve personally, but also I want to experience and do. And how can when I go out, that's the punchline. When I go out, I want to go out on E. I want to go out on fumes. I want to go out just going, all right, I may not have nailed it, but you know what? I sure swung hard. And I gave it everything I did in every aspect that I possibly could. And, I don't want to be that looking back and, well, I didn't try hard enough, or I didn't do this, those regrets. I think that's a big evolution for a lot of people, and that's not sexy. That's not, you have to do some deep thinking about that. And I think that is something that I honestly don't believe I'm alone in that one either for people, for advanced adults.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate you for sharing, and I'm sure so many people can connect with that idea. And it also like leads into, even though you kind of poo-pooed it a little bit, but just like having purpose is really important. Whether you're working and making money and that feels like your purpose, or you're spending your time in a particular way, or you're reimagining how you want a different third of your life to be. Like purpose is what keeps us alive, essentially.
It's important to say when I say purpose. Here's what I mean by that. I think, and again, here's what I will poo-poo is the whole social media. Everybody's awesome, it's a celebrity and fantastic and awesome and looks great.
Fair.
That is what I poo-poo. And so when they think of purpose, oftentimes it is the something great and grand and bigger than yourself. Look, here's the deal. I'm going to do a video on this real soon. It's the idea of, look, chances are you're not going to have your name on a building. Okay, they're not going to have a library named after you. Your legacy, okay, and that may be an unpopular opinion. Your legacy is a much shorter runway than you think. I guarantee you, I could go to teenagers, Gen Z right now and say, name the 4 Beatles for me, and I bet you they probably couldn't. Right? So look at that. Okay, look at that versus us. Really, your name, your memory is gone in 4 generations. Okay. So I thought of that. I thought of, I saw something not long ago. There was a great uncle of mine. Okay. So my grandmother's brother, and he, the Facebook and everything else. Okay. He died in his 90s, but the memory pops up and says, oh, Herb Stokes would have been 104 today. And I thought about that. And I thought, okay, my kids will never know that. Then, and their kids will never know that. So where I'm going with it is your purpose. Your purpose is on a micro level, not a macro level. Okay. It's great to say we're going to change the world. Very few people are going to really, truly change the world. But what you are going to do is for those 4 generations, you're going to have a thumbprint on your children, your family, your friends, the person at the store who you interact with, the person who you inspire just by being nice to them or giving them an idea. And your purpose is fluid. I think that's the other thing. So, your purpose goes from when you were, young, dumb, and bulletproof in your 20s and thinking, well, I want to achieve this and do this, to my purpose now is I want to spend time with my children. I want to be the best I can there. I want to be the best in my relationship I can. I want to be true to myself. Okay? That's for me, maybe not anybody else, but I believe your purpose changes dramatically once you hit a certain age or a certain life event or something. And so your purpose is not necessarily this magnificent social media driven thing of, how can I'm going to go to Africa and feed children. If you want to, and that's your bag, you go, baby. But I really think it's much more on what do you truly have an impact on, an ability to move a needle. Yeah. Caregiving is one of those things.
Well, I think, first of all, that's a great answer. Second of all, that is, I think, a great way to wrap up this episode and to encourage some of our listeners to go check you out at Advanced Adulting. Where can they find you, Bradley?
Absolutely. All over social media, but the best places are going to be, you can type in Advanced Adulting, but it's I'm Bradley Richardson. I am Bradley Richardson is the handle on most everything. We have the Advanced Adulting podcast coming out on Thursdays on YouTube. And then we also have the Advanced Adulting community as well. That's a free community that people can join. We do that over on school, but you can contact me at Advanced Adulting and get you in on that as well. It's just resources, tips, tools, and most importantly, connection for people. Because I think and you asked that question earlier, man, you're not alone. You're not the only person going through this. And that's really all you need to know, that it's okay.
Well, Bradley, thank you so much for being here with us on CareLab. Dear listener/viewer, if you made it to the end of this episode, please take a moment to like, share, comment, review. These are the best ways to help us reach more people like you with great guest information. Until next time, we'll see you right back here next Friday on CareLab. Bye.
Bye, everybody.